Happy New Year, cultists. I trust you, all you regular listeners, and any of you out there listening for the first time, welcome, by the way, had a good holiday season. Well, the prospect of another year facing whatever this life throws at you may not be the most cheerful one. I hope we can provide some small light in the darkness that is another spin on this merry-go-round. But for now, I want to welcome you to the first Cult Classic show of 26, and we have a special episode for you this time around. This January, Cult Classics is taking part in events helping out and bringing attention to the Fill the Stein charity, which brings awareness with regards to suicide prevention. We've got a couple of special presentations to bring to you over the course of the month, so please stick with us and learn how you can help. We'll put all the links to both the charity and the upcoming events in the description, so please click on the links and help fill that Stein this year. All the money goes to a very good cause. With that in mind, we're kicking things off here with, as I said, a special episode of Cult Classics, and today we're looking at the 1982 Alan Parker-Pink Floyd musical The Wall. So for the next hour and change, come with us as we explore this surrealist slice of cinematic history. I say we because, as always, I'm not alone. However, this time our guest is both special, not only to us here on Cult Classics, not only to me, but she is the founder and mind behind the Fill the Stein charity herself. If you're a regular follower of the show, you'll know her from last season's review of Willy's Wonderland. She's a good friend of the show, an actor, comedian, artist, and all-around Renaissance woman. It's Meliha. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Always a pleasure to be part of this.
Nice. I was going to say, you obviously couldn't get enough after our last review. What lured you back?
I think it's the fact that we talk about cult movies. There's so many different movie podcasts out there that talks about, just the standard classics, but I feel that we don't give enough love to the cult movies, and so it's nice to see the underdog get their flowers, so to speak.
Cool. Now it's been a few months since that review. What have you been up to since then?
Well, not to poke at you a little bit, but I'm also a musician and a singer as well. So I have been trying to work on a new album that's just on the hush hush. That's your sneak peek for everyone. Working on a new album. I am working on a new movie. It's a lot of things that are going on out here, and I don't know. I just entertainment drives me and drives. I just want to be part of it. However, I can be part of it.
Fair enough. Now it was your suggestion that prompted today's movie choice. Without getting too far into it right now, what is it about this movie that brought it to mind?
I feel like history repeating itself is a phrase that we have heard a lot, especially recently. And I feel that there are ways that the wall is still very relevant to us in today's current climate. And I feel that maybe we need a reminder of the ending message of the wall without giving away the spoiler.
Fair enough. As we mentioned, today's episode is to help benefit the Fill the Stein charity, of which you are the founder. Do you want to tell us what that's about?
Absolutely, yeah. Fill the Stein was established in January, well, I guess technically February of 2020. This was started after I had lost someone very close and dear to me that I had loved very much. His name is Sean J. And once he left this realm and lost his battle with depression, I needed to find a place to put my grief. And I decided that the best way that I could take something so ugly and painful and dark was to find ways to bring light. And for me, it was this foundation, starting this charity to save maybe at least one life, and just so that no one could ever feel the pain of losing someone to suicide the way that I and the rest of Sean's loved ones, friends, and family alike have felt his absence. And so he had a favorite Stein that he had. So we think of the times that we could go to the bar and fill that Stein with him. And so now he can't fill his own Stein, so we fill it for him.
I understand you hold the event annually every January. Is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately, we lost Sean January 30th, 2020. So it is on January 30th each year.
Cool. And what's been the response since you founded it?
Honestly, overwhelmingly positive. I've been very, very blessed to have such support, not only from the people around me that, you know, want to support me through the grieving process, but also, you know, Sean's family and other friends have been incredibly supportive, incredibly supportive. We, in just the couple of years that we have done it, we have almost raised $10,000 collectively, which is a huge accomplishment. And unfortunately, last year, we weren't able to hold the charity event because the LA fires were happening simultaneously. So, unfortunately, we had to shift our focus and priority at that time.
And do you have any hopes for this year's drive?
To finally hit that 10,000. I know we would have made it last year had the fires have not happened. So I have full confidence that we're going to make that 10K benchmark for our overall charity.
Well, hopefully we can help get you there. We'll make sure the links to the events and the link to donate itself is in the description. So all of you out there, please, if you can help in any way, whether it's a monetary donation or even it's just raising awareness to your friends and family by sharing the link, it all helps, however small, and it could literally help save someone's life. So please, please, please do what you can. Thank you. So now we come to today's film, which, as I mentioned earlier, is Pink Floyd's The Wall, which is a 1982 British musical surrealist drama directed by Sir Alan Parker. It's based on Pink Floyd's 1979 studio album, The Wall. The screenplay was written by then Pink Floyd vocalist and bassist Roger Waters, with animation sequences directed by Gerald Scarfe. The Boomtown Rats' lead vocalist Bob Geldof made his film debut here as rock star Pink, who, driven to neuroses by the pressures of stardom and traumatic events in his personal life, constructs an emotional and mental wall to protect himself. However, this coping mechanism eventually backfires and Pink demands to be set free. Now, like the album that inspired it, the film is highly metaphorical and frequently uses both visual and auditory symbolism throughout. It features little dialogue, instead using the music from the album throughout. The songs used have several differences from their album version, however, and two of the songs included, When the Tigers Broke Free and What Shall We Do Now, do not appear on the album. They appear on the later album. Originally shown out of competition during the 1982 Cannes Film Festival, the film's official premiere was at the Empire, Leicester Square in London on the 14th of July, 1982. It was attended by writers and fellow Pink Floyd members Dave Gilmour and Nick Mason, but not Richard Wright, who at that point was no longer a member of the band. It went on to open with a limited release in the UK on the 6th of August 1982, followed by the United States on the 13th of August, and eventually earned $22 million before closing in early 1983. Now, despite its turbulent production, the film received generally positive reviews with praise for its music and animation, and over the years it has gained a not insignificant cult following. Contrary, I'm sure, to rumours, I'm not old enough to have seen this in cinemas, but this does stand out in my mind for one reason. The local news at the time showed a clip of the film as part of a news report. Now, I may be misremembering, but I believe local children were cast in the brick in the wall sequence, and they showed said sequence in that report. It was the part with the children on the conveyor belt and the mincer. It's safe to say that being very young, impressionable child at the time, not only did it give me many sleepless nights that week, but gave me a severe aversion to starting school when that finally came about. It wasn't until many years later that I saw the full thing, but until that point, trauma. So, Melissa, I have to ask, what was your first experience of this movie?
Completely different. That's for sure. Uh, my first experience was like, I don't know, I think I was about 20, and I think my then boyfriend and I smoked a joint and watched The Wall. So it was a completely different experience
Yeah,
for me.
much more relaxed, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, definitely there was still some heavy messages that, hammered home, especially even in a vibin' state, so to speak. But yeah, definitely didn't have nightmares or anything after.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a powerful movie, though it's not an easy watch for me still. But is it something that you find yourself going back to visit frequently?
I wouldn't say frequently. I just feel that it's one of those movies that I will go back to watch, but I have to be like, it has to be enough time between watches. And, I have to feel it not only in length of time, but also in my soul.
Yeah. I mean, being a fan of Floyd, I do go back to the album, obviously, with much more regularity. So, how about you?
Oh, I do love listening to The Wall. Absolutely. It's tough because now I don't know if I can ever listen to The Wall without watching The Wall, but I also have quite a few experiences of me hitting a highway very, very early in the morning or late at night, depending on what your perspective is. But listening to The Wall, windows down, cruising in Florida, you know what I mean? So
I take it you're a fan of Floyd in general, yeah?
absolutely. I mean, I feel that any group that is able to create political messaging through arts is always held in high regard to me.
So, yeah, coming back to the film, as you say, it has a lot of themes that unfortunately still remain relevant today.
Hmm.
I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on the film as a piece of art itself and, the themes involved within it?
Woo! Well, that is a big question. Let's start here. I think that the film as a whole is genuinely just masterfully done. I know this is an odd comparison, but stay with me here. It almost feels like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and how they combined the realism with the animated. Also, what's his name from Who Framed Roger Rabbit is in The Wall.
Bob Hoskins.
Yes, thank you. And I feel that artistically to get the point across to show really just the darkness and the messages that probably could not have gotten across through practical set means that can be expressed. The bloody crosses, the bird turning into a plane flying over to represent what's happening in the war at that point in time. There's a lot of imagery throughout, or even near the end, the judge being an asshole, a literal asshole.
Yeah.
I feel that there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor that could not have been portrayed, as well as these very poignant yet dark, I would say even protests about the war.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched it a couple of times in recent weeks, obviously to make notes for the film, and every time I watch it, it strikes a chord with me even more.
Hmm.
And it's really weird because the people involved in it view it as just a disappointing work by the band and the film's key crew. Roger Waters feels that the film is too depressing. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. It does get a little dour, And he says it doesn't let the audience sympathize with Pink. Director Alan Parker, he felt that the result was amateurish. He knows his job better than I do, but with all due respect, I think he's wrong. I think it's done really well. But he
Mhm.
called it the most expensive student film ever made. And yeah, Gerald Scarfe even turned down going to the premiere because he couldn't bear to see the film again. He claimed on the DVD commentary that he doesn't understand why people like the film. And Dave Gilmour has since stated that the film was the least successful version of the Walls concert, which that I can get. That I can get. I mean, they've had very successful tours. Obviously, the album's done fantastically well. But
Mhm.
do you think it's a case of I don't know, when you look at your own work as compared to another artist's, that sometimes you feel your own work falls short? That's the only thing I can ascribe to this, because to me, it's a stunning piece of art and it's a stunning film.
Yes and no. I feel that there is, of course, whenever you're zoomed in, you'll be able to see every single brush stroke. However, as an artist, I can also sympathize with what they're saying because you know your full potential and you know what you are capable of. And so I don't know if they feel that this is a piss poor project. I'm curious to know what they would have come up with had they have had the proper resources and budget and whatever and mind power
Yeah,
to
because I mean, Gerald Scarfe alone, I think those animation sequences are beautiful.
right.
So for him to turn around and just not like his own input, I scarcely dare to think what he did have in mind and what he could have done. Apparently, Waters originally conceived it as a starring vehicle for himself.
Mhm.
Uh, One theory as to why that didn't happen is that allegedly his lackluster screen test led to the casting of, coincidentally, another musician with no prior acting experience, Bob Geldof. On the other hand, in the DVD special features, Alan Parker states, in his opinion, that Waters was too close to the material to do it properly. So,
Hmm.
do you think that would have changed things had Waters actually been in there rather than Geldof?
I mean, yes and no. I feel that I feel like the most wishy-washy politician ever for these answers. But it's true. I genuinely feel both ways on this. I feel that had Roger Waters been the star, it would have brought a different sort of extra realism. If they're bitching about it being too sad now, I can't imagine the type of sadness that would have been brought to the wall if it was really him, where he could like base his performance on his real experiences.
Yeah, and I mean he was already already on record as it being too depressing to start
That's
with.
what
So
I'm saying.
yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, apparently Alan Parker, he walked out on the project many times. He was originally only going to produce it, but they weren't able with the director Michael Saracen.
Hmm.
They weren't able to come up with a cohesive vision. And Parker took Saracen's place as director because Saracen walked off it. Now, apparently, Alan Parker walked out on the project quite a few times due to an alleged ego clash with Waters. So, whether that's got anything to do with it, you know how it is, behind the scenes and what they say public facing can be two different things sometimes.
Sure.
But apparently, Waters was annoyed at Parker, who didn't like the way that he wanted to make it a cult film. Apparently, Waters set out to make it a cult. So, apparently, the song Not Now, John, on Pink Floyd's next album, The Final Cut, contains the following lyrics, which were written by Waters. Not now, John, we've got to get on with the film show. Hollywood waits at the end of the rainbow. Who cares what it's about as long as the kids go? So, not now, John, I've got to get on with the show. But I think I mean, I don't know about you. I think it's directed beautifully. I mean, this is Alan Parker. I mean, he worked on things from Bugsy Malone to Mississippi Burning, Birdie, Fame, Angel Heart, The Commitments, Evita. So, he ended up with he's no longer with us, may his soul rest in peace. But he had a career of bringing music to film. And I think I'm glad that this project didn't kind of put him off. But I also think there's some beautiful, beautiful scenes in this, right from the opening shot, when you're going down that kind of hotel apartment corridor, and they're
Mhm.
playing the Vera Lynn song. It feels, I don't know about you, but it feels almost sinister, which I guess fits in with the theme of the film. It's almost like you're looking at the inside of an asylum.
Well, I'm not sure how the year differences are, but it was giving me The Shining for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sinister vibe is a good way to put it. I felt, but there was the silence of it. I remember rewatching it and I'm like, is this supposed to be this quiet? Like, did I watch is this a version that's been copyright stricken? I don't understand. However, no, that's genuinely just how silent the movie starts off, is with that corridor. I think it's such a interesting juxtaposition to the corridor versus the loudness of war and the planes and everything that we saw immediately that it cut to.
Yeah. I think they do that impeccably throughout the movie, cutting from one scene to the other and showing just the contrast. Another scene that stands out for me is that where he's in the pram and his mother
Mhm.
sat in the garden, and it's such kind of an idyllic scene, and then it keeps cutting back to the battlefield. There are transitions like that all throughout the film, and I think it's that kind of thing that makes it a very powerful piece. It doesn't sit still. The film doesn't navel gaze. I don't know if you thought that. It gets on with telling the story such as it is. I think the story kind of shines through even when there's not much dialogue.
I think it's interesting that you pointed out the mom and the baby outside as well. I also made a note of that. And I said, it's interesting how the mom and baby getting outside time, I put in quotations, versus the soldiers laying in the ditch outside. So they're both getting outside time, if you will, but in totally different ways. Yeah, and I do really enjoy to see the different ways that the parallels and the comparison of different things. I also have the concerts, when they finally let the kids come into the concert or to the show, and how they were like running and they would kept cutting to soldiers running in the trenches as well.
I think it's so atmospheric at the start. The perfect marriage to the music, when with the tigers broke free,
Hmm.
and there's that beautiful shot, and they reuse it later when it cuts to him as a child. It's like there's the sun setting, a field, and there's like a rugby goal kind of
Hmm.
thing there, and you see the child's silhouette. And I think there is some absolutely stunning cinematography in this. I
Hmm.
think it really works. And as a kid that grew up in, I'm not going to say post-war Britain because I am definitely not that old. As a kid in Britain, that kind of scene fills me with a kind of nostalgia because it was very much like that. Our local playground had, like, rugby goal and stuff like that. So, I mean, these were the days that we were playing out as children. There were no consoles, no, iPads or anything like that. So, yeah, I was just going to say, in the autobiography, is that it? Bob Geldof says that his agent first told him about the project while he was in a taxi,
Hmm.
and that he said he didn't want to do it because he didn't like the music of Pink Floyd. Yeah, and Roger Waters knows this story, not because he read it in Geldof's book, but because the taxi driver was actually Roger Waters' brother.
Ha!
Yeah, I mean, I will be completely frank. I'm not the biggest fan of Geldof. So when I saw him in this, I didn't register really the first time, but later on when I watched it, I was torn between, is that Bob Geldof? And, oh, it's Bob Geldof. But I will say he does a really admirable job in this. He's a decent performer in this one. I just wonder what you think to that.
I've actually never seen him in anything else. I all I have is this performance, really.
Yeah.
Um, However, I can say that for this performance, I felt myself convinced. I was along for the ride. I definitely cringed when he cut his eyebrows with the razor blade. I believed it, so that has to be something for me to believe that he went through some sort of psychosis that caused him to cut himself up.
Well, I was reading apparently that he was supposed to do his eyebrows, but he went whole hog and he started shaving his chest and stuff. So that was unscripted.
Oh.
Yeah. One thing that I did find out that I found quite amusing during the thin ice, he's floating in the swimming pool.
Hmm.
Now, Geldof is infamous for his dislike of bathing, and he couldn't swim. So instead, he was supported by a plastic body mold similar to that used for the flying sequences in Superman. And some reports claim that it's the one used in 1984's Supergirl, which is confirmed by Nicholas Schaefer's 1991 book, A Saucer Full of Secrets, The Pink Floyd Odyssey. So Helen Slater, who was in Supergirl, had to lend Bob Geldof the mold for flying sequences just so he could float in the pool. I mean, this does have some, I'm not going to say problematic. It is problematic, but it's supposed to be problematic. But it does have some very, I would say, close to the bone scenes. I mean, the fascist imagery starts fairly soon into it. You know, when it shows the troops and his father getting killed. You know, then it cuts to later on where they're playing on the train tracks and he puts the bullet, and then all of a sudden he sees the trains and the kids are being herded to school almost like Holocaust victims
Yeah.
being
I
herded to the camps, and it's very unnerving. I don't know what you thought to that.
Yeah, and did you notice that they were the people without faces also?
Yeah,
I did. It was very unnerving, and to see because he was just being a kid, but it's ironic that a bullet that's used to kill Nazis and fascists is one that the child's playing with. And there we see exactly why the bullet was even in possession, because of them shipping people like cattle. I don't know. I feel like that was a genuinely full circle kind of moment.
yeah, it does. It does that quite a lot, and I do like that. I do like how they do it, and every time I think of the imagery involved and what you've just been saying with regards to it going full circle, I think narratively it's done very well. So for them to say it's the most expensive student film, I think they're really underselling themselves. I mean, I do love that it goes from that scene to
The
what is it?
school.
The school, yeah.
Hmm.
And it's basically they're treated like one of the faceless, one of the masses. I mean, it pretty much hammers it home that they're crushing kids' individuality, as seen by where the teacher embarrasses him by reading out the poem. It's grooming essentially, and I think that's what they're trying to get across. I mean, it's killing their individuality and getting rid of those that think outside the box for a generation of those that reason the same. It's in essence, it's propaganda perpetuating generations of good citizens who would again, going full circle, die for their country. In a very real sense, it is grinding them up in a mincer and just spewing out these faceless masses. And it's a theme that the film returns to constantly. Going back to the school analog, where he's fantasizing about the kids just ripping the shit out of the classroom.
Yeah, I also commented in my notes here that the school turning the children into faceless uniform blobs, and then that even the faceless form wasn't the final form. The kids were then put through a meat grinder. So it was like they were sold this false narrative of if you just give up your face, you'll make it through. But then it wasn't even enough for them to give up their face, they had to give up everything.
Yeah. And it all falls. I mean, it all falls down to that these circular arguments to stop people thinking. It's if you don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding. You can't have any pudding if you don't eat your meat. It's all to stifle reason and just put out a generation of people that know things by rote but don't know the reasoning behind it. Getting back to Pink, it's fairly obvious by this point. By the point he's at school, and it comes up again later that he cannot let go of this trauma. Losing a father, you see it in the playground scenes at the start. He desperately needs that father figure, even to the point where he's latching on to another kid's father. He doesn't have that figure in his life, and because of that, his mother becomes this kind of domineering you know, putting all her insecurities onto him and treating him like a China doll kind of thing. And
But she's also notably absent. I don't know if you picked up on that as well.
yeah, it does happen later, but he tends to, you know, I mean, this is personally what I'm getting from it, but he tends to obviously look at the later female figure that comes into his life, his eventual wife, as his kind of, as a mother substitute. It's all extremely unhealthy from the word go. He hero worships this person that he never met, and you know, had his father come back, it's possibility that he wouldn't have ended up like this, because he would have seen that his father is not this perfect character. His father had flaws, but instead he ended up with this mother. And as you say, she's notably absent later in the movie, whether she passes or whether after a certain point he just didn't want anything to do with her.
Oh, no, I
And
mean, I'm saying notably absent even, like, so during when she was outside at pram time, right? She put the baby way far away. When he was at the park, where was she? He asked, "Where's your mother?" And the kid just kind of haphazardly pointed in a direction. She was overbearing, but she was only overbearing when she wanted to be. So I'm saying that there was an extra added layer of fucked upness here, because when he needed her, when he was feeling vulnerable, she wasn't there.
yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. I didn't pick up on that myself.
Yeah, but you're right. And the PTSD in the pool, I think it's interesting how we see him swimming in a pool of fake blood, that his mind's eye that creates the pool into blood. However, later when we see him back in the pool after he had cut his hand, after he had a proper royal crash out, that's his real blood. So it's interesting, I think, to see the comparison of the two, where he had the trauma that was laid on him, given on to him, put onto him. He had his father's trauma, the grief of losing his father, and through the war, and understanding what it means to have lost a father through the war. I guess losing the war to himself and to be in that place in the pool again. But he's not thrashing around this time. It's almost like, I wouldn't say he's at peace, but it's almost like he understands.
Like an acceptance kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously, he's constantly living in the past, and you see it by the fact that the majority of the time he's watching all old war movies, particularly the Dam Busters kind of thing. It's almost like he's stuck in a groove that he can't get out of. With everything going back, do you think that just maybe someone talking to him, maybe someone trying to help, would have diverted the self-isolation and the eventual depression that set in?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you remember the scene when he was at the train station as a kid and waiting for the dad to come off the train. And the dad didn't get off the train. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a TV set there, and he ended up sitting watching the TV at the train station. And it feels like that was the beginning of him numbing his pain through television. I made a note here also because, like, he's always observing society and culture and current events. It's sometimes it's war movies, but I've seen a lot of the time it's just like things that were popular in that time that, you couldn't really get away from.
He does
It's
eventually lose it to the the clips featuring Reagan and the current events and stuff like that.
That's what I'm saying, is that it's kind of like because that came a little too close to home with Reagan and things like that. I feel that he started to, like, really lose himself into the television set. So yes, of course, had somebody come and talk to him, I just feel that, like, that's another example of how the mom was absent. The mom should have come and talked to him, the child seeing all these other people. Like, you even see him go up to this one guy dressed in a soldier's uniform, and he tugs on the back because he thinks it's his father. The guy turns around and says sorry, and then his wife comes and gives him a hug, and they get swept off away into their lives. And so at that point, it's just a lot more ways that the mom expected Pink to navigate through her grief without also recognizing Pink's grief. And so that selfishness and the way that she approached it made it so that he was always looking for a mother figure, which is why when he found that wife that he ended up marrying, who then eventually cheated on him, causing the spiral, but when he got with her, it's because she chased after him the way that his mother did and was always checking up on him the way that his mother did, and he didn't have to put in any single effort. This is a full psychoanalysis now, by the way. We're no longer on we're no longer on cult classics. We're in Psych 101. He marries this woman because she's like his mother, but she was supposed to have the things like his mother plus the things that she was missing, a la empathy and genuine care and concern for him. But she, of course, being a natural, normal, healthy human being, I don't condone her for cheating, but I do get what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just that
Well, it shows her completely distraught because she's trying to get through to him and he's just not interested. He's just
right.
completely disassociated.
Right. And it's like, that's why I said I don't condone her cheating, but I'm not going to say that I'm not going to pretend I don't understand because, yeah, she tried loving him. She tried being there. I mean, she seemed like she was happy on their wedding day. And even on his wedding day, he looks kind of fucked up, like he didn't even want to be there.
And I think that it draws it back down into the general feeling. I mean, I'm going to touch upon Gerald Scarfe's animation again now. But I think that's what it comes back to it in this animation, the fucking flowers. I mean, when it starts off, the animation's quite tender, but then it devolves into conflict, which is, and it goes back to the kind of the soulless vibe that runs through the piece, and in which case, it's interesting that after that it goes into the whole soulless thing where human contact, it's replaced by things, by possessions, almost to the point where it reduces people to possessions. And again, we see that wall going up, trapping his soul almost, and everything going barbaric, because it's almost like a commodity, like people are reduced to a commodity. It dissolves into conflict, and even in the lyrics, get a new guitar and that kind of thing. It's almost like people are eschewing contact with other people for just possessions. And I think it flashes back to that at the start where you see Pink sat in the chair with the cigarette that's pretty much turned to ash by this point, and he's wearing a Mickey Mouse watch. So what do you think about that?
I think it's really interesting that they did do the choice of the Mickey Mouse watch, like to show that there was a preserved youth in that, and that he's trying to still chase and preserve his youth. As an adult, to have a Mickey Mouse watch, it seems juvenile, but for him, that's like a piece of his youth that he feels that maybe he never got to experience or was taken away from him, with his father dying so young, and then having the totally burnt, unsmoked cigarette, that he's holding on to.
Yeah.
It's not even that he decided to chain smoke or take like the world's strongest rip. He wasn't trying to hit the Benjamin for a blinker. It was still like you could see he himself, he is that unsmoked, totally burnt cigarette. He is full of potential that is just completely untapped, I think. And that's exactly what that was. That cigarette that could have been smoked for the enjoyment, for the pleasure of smoking the cigarette, yet burned away.
You think it's a symbol of Pink's life?
Yeah, his life burning away without ever actually finding the enjoyment.
Because he can't get over this past trauma. At this point, Bob Hoskins is trying to get him back into the swing of things. He's, there's cocaine flying around, but it's fairly obvious that at this point he couldn't care less about anything or anyone else. He's alone. And I think that's where this misplaced rage at his life and this self-pity, and ends up smashing up the apartment.
But he had that one last moment of humanity right before that really big crash out. I don't know if you saw, but he had that single tear run down.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was the other thing too on that. When we see him rocking back and forth in the chair in like in his mind's eye in this like desolate area, you see him rocking back and forth in front of the TV, and it turns into him as a child. So it's just another way to show that how our inner children just are begging for somebody to heal us and to help us.
Yeah. There's a generation of entire kids that lost their fathers in the war. It's almost a commentary, not just on Pink himself, but on the youth of Britain at that point. Because around the time that this came out, there was a lot of rebellion, and not just good rebellion. I know you had, you had the punk, you had the new wave, which was a form of rebellion and a healthy form of rebellion in my eyes. But you also had a lot of people, strangely enough, and I think that, what it touches upon in this movie, ironically, that turn into pretty much fascists themselves. It's almost like they're rebelling at the thing that took their father away from them by embracing the very thing that led to them not having a father in the first place.
You know why? It's because it's fashionable. It was made fashionable to go to a concert where they're with a bunch of other people that, so now you feel the group camaraderie. That's why, is because they made it in vogue.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, many of the extras in the Run Like Hell and Waiting for the Worm sequences were actual neo-Nazis that were cast
What?
for realism. Seriously. Gerald Scarfe became frightened that things were getting out of control when on one day during filming, several of these Nazis showed up with the double hammer insignia shaved into the side of their heads. Later, a fascist group did spring up in the late 1980s, dubbed the Hammerskins, with that logo as their insignia, much to the dismay of Scarfe, Parker, and Waters. This was supposed to be an anti-fascist piece. I mean, I can't believe that they took on neo-Nazis. Yes, I get the need for realism, but there's a limit. But then to see this thing, which is predominantly anti-fascist, being co-opted, and we see that time and time and time again. And this is why to me, unfortunately, it's still very relevant today. So, yeah, I don't know what you think to all of this.
I don't know. Something that I found really interesting was did you notice how the wall almost resembled the Berlin Wall? I would just imagine that was on purpose.
Yeah.
It felt like no matter what twist or turn that you looked at, regardless if it was his personal battles in dealing with his own traumas or dealing with the outside world, there was always some kind of weaving, like the Berlin Wall as his mind's eye wall. There's never a moment of reprieve here. It's saying, and I have here too, like when you see his inner self, his true self, stuck behind the huge wall, practically naked, trying to break free, but the wall is built, it's too late. I really enjoy all of the little symbolism that if you're not really looking for it, you'll miss, such as him being naked. I think that, like, practically naked, rather. I think that that's a testament to vulnerability, but it's already too late. He's already hidden away. And then the wall was also holding in Pink's sanity. I think that him like doing that massive organizing of arbitrary items, like he broke apart the guitars and all of the bridges of the guitars in one area, all of the necks in the other, like the heads, the tuning, whatever. It's just like all of it.
It felt like to me like he was building a shrine to everything that had tormented him throughout his life, almost.
That's an interesting. Yeah, like all of the material that he has collected throughout his life, now he's breaking it apart and seeing it for what it is. And then we see, back to when we were talking about how when we see who's really hurting or isolated inside, the inner child, you see the inner child go looking for the current self, and then the inner child finds the current self, but the current self reacts in a way that's very scary, and so the inner child goes running.
It's almost like he doesn't recognize himself. He hates this person that he's become because this person's got so much misplaced rage and wants to lash out at the world outside. It literally feels like he's going insane.
Right.
Yeah. And you see it when they come in. yes, he's been keeping everybody else at a social distance, but it's fairly obvious that the people that he shouldn't have been keeping at a distance are the ones that actually cared about him. In the meantime, he's got people like his manager, who obviously just sees him as,
A
you know,
paycheck.
the golden goose, and just wants to get him out there. I do find it kind of amusing. This is just a film nerd thing. The hotel owner slash manager was played by the British actor Michael Ensign, who ended up kind of reprising the hotel manager role in Ghostbusters. That
Oh,
was just me. Yeah, and then he gets into that pseudo fantasy where he's a fascist icon. It's this segment of the film which is the most kind of unnerving for me.
I don't think that the Nazi fascist leader was a dream sequence. I take it to be a real, actual sequence.
Okay.
Because later, when you see him in the bathroom stall, he's like losing his mind and he's trying to do these lyrics or whatever. And I don't know if you noticed, but it was specifically a black police officer that opened the bathroom stall that actually allowed him, that cut to the animated sequence of the trial.
Yeah.
It was, I think, poetic that a black officer was able to make him come out of the wall in his mind's eye. But that's what I'm saying is I didn't take it as a dream sequence. I took it as reality. I think that literally while he was on his way to perform from the Comfortably Numb sequence, that kind of, he had that hate in his heart already, but he didn't give it a place to breathe until that concert.
Yeah. And you think at that point he was just like kind of lashing out and peddling hate.
Well, I mean, the one, he has nothing left. It was there. It was there that I feel that he transformed and allowed his hatred to have the breathing room it needed to expand.
You've already mentioned that he gets let out by that security guard, which leads to the trial. It genuinely does feel at times, and they refer to it like it's a crime to have feelings when you should simply accept your place in society. And to some extent, you are made to feel crazy for letting things affect you.
Right. Well, because this is, again, the individualism that's taking, and even back then, you could see the individualism starting to take precedence in common social norms. Obviously not quite as bad as now, but it's just, if I can't take care of myself, why should I care about you? Also, you're acting out way too much. Your feelings are too much. They need to be smaller, digestible, consumable. And it's just, I don't know, it's people not making space for others. It's just a selfishness. And that's why I said it's like this self-centeredness and this everybody is the main character energy.
I think looking at it from a Brit perspective here, but even my generation, we're always taught to have the stiff upper lip, that men shouldn't show emotion, that nothing should affect them, really, and stop letting things get to you, get a spine, that kind of thing. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things. I don't know if did you ever kind of have that over there? Because over here it was a very keep calm and carry on, that kind of ethos. Was that ever prevalent in the US as far as you know?
Oh my god, yes. Like this leaves the conversation of cultural and just into straight patriarchy. Yeah, I mean, no matter what culture, this is the US, me growing up in the US and in Turkey, I can safely tell you, no matter where you are, patriarchy is alive and well. But it happens. It happens, and these men, yeah, stiff upper lip, whatever, but it's just outdated rhetoric. It's just, and it's so harmful.
It's very facile to say this, but it's almost like if you don't let off steam once in a while, sooner or later, things are going to kick off. And society pressures people into not letting that steam off. It's just what I took from that trial sequence. I don't know what you got from it, but that's just my personal view.
Well, in the trial sequence, I actually made a whole big note on this. It is tearing down the walls, let go of all the trauma that built it. That's what it is. Is to tear down the walls, is to let go of all of the trauma that built the wall. Because that's what they were saying is, the wife cheated, the father died, this. And so we all are trapped in our own wall, self-imposed and from outside factors. When we finally decide to tear down the wall, we must approach it with an innocence and a desire to help like that of a child. When we all start with fresh hearts, we can repair, build anything. And so I think my favorite part of the movie is actually the ending. The kids in the rubble. Because that's exactly, and that's not just a society, a message for society in the grander scheme of things. I feel like it's a message for everyone on an individual level, where you have to realize that sometimes the wall gets too high and you have to break it down, because if you want to live and experience the world, and the one opportunity we get to experience it in this lifetime as this form, you have to let go of your trauma. You have to look at the destruction of what was, and you must just start picking up the rubble and cleaning
Yeah.
up.
I mean, that final scene for me, at first I worry that, is it all going to begin again? But when you see the child emptying the gasoline out of the Molotov, to me, it's kind of, in a movie that doesn't have much of it, it's a small symbol of hope that it's not going to be repeated. I don't know.
Actually, that's something that's really interesting about the wall. At the beginning of the wall and at the end of the wall, it is cyclical. It starts and ends the exact same way. It starts off with somebody saying, "Isn't this the part where we just," and that was where we just started. Isn't this where we just,
Yeah,
isn't,
where we just came in or something. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's the point. This is cyclical, and that you can't just crash down your wall once and expect it to be you're healed from that point. That's not how it goes. Self growth is actively looking at and checking in with yourself multiple times throughout your life and saying, okay, this stream of events has caused me to build up this amount of walls, but I have this opportunity, this person, this something in front of me that requires me to break down my wall to get to it. And you will constantly have to break yourself down and rebuild yourself back up. It's that, unfortunately, is a fact of life. However, how you do it, why you do it, that is where the money is.
I think that's a good place to end the discussion on the movie. So, what is it about this movie that does keep you coming back to it?
I feel like I learn something new every time. I feel like it's almost like every time I watch it, no matter what's going on in my life, I feel I'm able to apply it somehow in a new way. Like I really didn't notice half of the stuff that I noticed this watch through. I just feel that now that, I've gotten a developed brain, and, I was also not smoking a joint with my ex-boyfriend at age of 20. Um,
It's pretty much the same reason. It's every time I watch this, I pick up something new. It sounds like I blow my own trumpet, but I feel better for taking on a bit more. I see an extra strand in the narrative and how it's relevant, and how it's relevant not just to my life, but to the world in general. And that's why I feel like they do a disservice when they say it's the most expensive student film, because I think that underplays just how powerful this is. When you strip away the fact that it's supposedly kind of a musical, it's got a lot to say. As you say, when you watch it when you're younger, you don't pick up on everything. As you get more developed, as you get more experience in life, and then you not necessarily sympathize with Pink, but you empathize with Pink. And, as you say, it can lead to you building your own wall. And I think if there's anything to take from this, it's, as you say, to keep trying to tear down that wall as you go. And, it goes without saying, but the music is also a big draw in this.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. As always, we asked you out there what you thought of the movie on our social media channels. So, as always, we're heading over to Vian for your opinions. Happy New Year, Vian.
Hey, Happy New Year to you, DK, and to all of our listeners. Gosh, 2026, if you can believe that. I don't think I can believe that it's 2026. So, interesting thing, when you first sent me the feedback for The Wall, my first thought was, gosh, I don't know what that movie is. And then, of course, I realized you're talking about Pink Floyd's The Wall. And it's interesting to me when I thought about this work and how it impacted me personally. What's interesting to me about that is how your personal life and a certain frame of reference can impact your approach to something from the cultural zeitgeist, especially something as big as The Wall. Because for me, my first introduction to The Wall was, 30 plus years ago. It was introduced to me because my mother's second husband, my second stepfather, who was Satan himself, loved Pink Floyd and loved Led Zeppelin and loved all these bands from this era. And so to me, because he was evil, I automatically despised everything he kind of liked. And so I had a very bad frame of reference for Pink Floyd and The Wall in particular. And then when I was in high school, 11th, 12th grade, I had friends who were kind of counterculture and, oh, you got to see this because there's a giant asshole dressed as a judge who spews out of his anus on the people. And I thought, wow, that's a little on the nose and kind of cliche. And I had a very dim view of it, even though my friends really loved it. So even though now as a 40-something-year-old person, I can appreciate Pink Floyd in a certain respect, for me it's forever tainted just because of my personal references to it in my introduction. So that was just something I thought was interesting, not about Pink Floyd specifically, but about culture in general and how it's shaped by our own influences. So got some interesting feedback on this. Al Winter, I hope that's Al and not AI Winter. Great music and animations. Geldof is horribly miscast, though, and that's from Cult Cinema and TV. Thank you, Mr. Winter. S. Kumar just says great, and that's from 80s and 90s movies. Sim Person, anti-Nazi, thank you so much. We hate Nazis. Every day is a great day to punch a Nazi. Sim Parsons says, as a young adult, I finally got around to hearing the album properly and really understanding it, trying to come to terms with an absent father. Wondering if I was worth a damn. I listened to the album on my ropey cassette player constantly. I'm pretty sure it kickstarted a long period of depression. Smiley face, I think ironically. And now here we are in the fascist phase of it. I said a long time ago we were headed for Pink's fascist phase, and here we are. Happy to report I'm the absolute opposite of a fascist. And I think this kind of comes back to what I was saying at the beginning of how our interpretation of a piece of art is shaped by our inner eye and our own worldview, and how our worldview is then shaped by our own experiences. So thank you, Sims Parsons. God, I hope I'm saying your name right, for sharing that. And then, of course, we have Hazenfar, who just is absolutely genius, and that's from the I Love the 80s The Wall. So most people, I think, really enjoy this work, and again, as a piece of kind of counterculture and the statement it was making. So with that, I'm sending it back to you, DK.
Thanks, Vian. And as always, thank you to you out there for letting us know what you think. And remember, if you want to have your say, don't forget to keep track of our social media accounts where we ask for your opinions regularly. And if you missed it this time around, you can always let us know in the comments section of this episode. So should you feel the need, knock yourselves out. Yeah, with that in mind, it's time to start wrapping this thing up. We've discussed this one fairly thoroughly, and I've really enjoyed this discussion tonight. I think there's been a lot of good points brought up. What do you think?
I feel like this is such a great in-depth discussion. I'm glad that I got to do this with you, somebody that is British, and I like that we were able to have like our different opposing viewpoints from our different cultures, me being American and Turkish and you being British.
Do you have any final thoughts and maybe a score out of 5 for this one?
My final thought is sometimes we need to zoom out. And I think that we're so focused on what's happening in our lives and with the people that we know that we forget about their lives or the people they know or the people they know or the people they don't know. The lesson here is to call out injustice when you see it. Don't follow things just because it's fashionable or trendy. Use your brain, have a set of ethics and morals, and never be afraid to stop growing and never to be afraid to tear down a wall that either you built or environmental factors contributed to. Either way, this wall shows us that as a society or as an individual, growth is not finite.
Have you got a score out of 5 for the movie?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I would still, I'm not disagreeing that it has student film vibes. However, I like it. I like that it's student film vibes. I like that it's raw. I would probably give it a solid 4 out of 5. Yeah, just because I think that the rawness of it, that it's not totally pretty, is exactly what it needed to be.
Cool. My conclusion's a little more mundane than yours. So, but yeah, it's a powerful, it's a striking film that not only speaks to me personally, but has something new every time I view it. The aesthetics may be a little dated to some respects, but its themes are, as I say, unfortunately, just as relevant in today's world as when it was released. Scarce animation sequences are haunting, and the movie's imagery stays with you long after the credits roll. And the music, well, I mean, it's one of the most notable prog rock albums for a reason. There is a case to be made that it's overly dour and hard to penetrate for some, but to me, it's still a really moving piece of art. So I have also given it a 4 out of 5. So, averaging out the scores, I mean, it's completely inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, but averaging out the scores, weirdly enough, it comes out as a 4 out of 5. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty respectable score. It's not perfect, but it's certainly in the upper echelons. What do you think?
That's exactly why it's perfect in its imperfection. I agree, and it receives the ratings because the flaws are what make it timeless.
Yeah, so that's it for our first episode of this season. It's been slightly different from previous episodes, but I hope you enjoyed our look at the movie anyway and the discussion that followed. And if so, stick around. I think you'll like what's coming up this year. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank today's guest. As always, Melissa, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to be on this with you, DK.
Did this one live up to your expectations?
All I can say is, all in all, it's just another brick in the wall.
So chances of you coming back, I would say, may be pretty good at this point, huh?
I think so.
Awesome. So if all you listeners out there want to see more of today's interaction, stick around on the Cult Classics show for the next few months. I think you'll like what's coming up. And just to give you a taster, next month we'll be returning to China once more as the Scarlet Pimpernel of the show, Nick, makes his return as we take a look at the classic Jackie Chan movie, Legend of the Drunken Master, or Drunken Master 2 if you prefer. So if you're a fan of that one, come join us. And if not, well, you've got a full month to catch up. But yeah, be sure that's not all you do. As we said at the beginning of the show, this episode was in honor of and support of the Fill the Stein charity. So head over to the links we provided below. I can't urge you enough to join in and help us raise money for this great cause. You really could help someone out, and I thank you in advance. I'll see you next time for some good old-fashioned kung fu action. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from my guest Melissa.
Bye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Have a great January, and remember, if you don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding. Good night.
You have been listening to the Cult Classics Show, part of the Silver Screen Podcast. Created, written, and hosted by DK. Editing by Nick. Produced by Mike Wilson. Feedback section produced by Lady Vienne. Opening credits by Ian Sanderson. Music by Timeless Journey. Follow us on social media. Links to all of our social media pages can be found on our link tree. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This has been a Mad Badger production for the Media Matters Podcast Network. Copyright 2024. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time. And remember, no matter where you go, there you are.